There are a lot of people who like to use House to organize ideas, but even Pinterest is a great resource. TikTok as well.
I have to get by the dog and cat videos first, to be honest with you, because they're so funny on TikTok. Come on.
It sounds like I like my TikTok better than your TikTok.
No, actually, I really do. TikTok is a great resource, but because of the algorithms and because of my fondness for cats and dogs, I do get a lot of funny videos.
Welcome to the Art of Custom from Hibbs Homes.
Preparing to build a home is a lot like preparing for a road trip. You begin with the destination in mind, you put together a plan for getting there, and of course, you make sure you have plenty of snacks on hand to help power through the hardest stretches. But to be fair, getting ready for a trek down the Pacific Coast Highway probably doesn't have the same time and financial commitment you must undertake when you decide to build your dream home. There are 4 key parts and pieces to wrangle into place before you even start putting your home design pen on paper and eventually shovel to dirt. So Melody, this is going to be a very good session that we're talking about because if you're organized up front, it truly does help the building process and the bidding process all the way through.
Right. And by the time that you're talking to your builder and, figuring out who you want to work with, you have a clear vision. You're going to have a much easier time figuring out who's going to be the best person to help you execute it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we're going to take a deep dive today. We're going to be talking about, obviously, what it's like to build your vision. You have to start with that vision. That vision eventually is developed into a budget. We talk about assembling our team or your team as you get ready to build. At the very beginning, we start with the land search. So it's going to be very in-depth, and I think everybody will be able to learn a lot from this.
Well, and I think that some of these pieces need to run in tandem as well, and you're doing this up front. So I think, kind of having an idea of what to do all at once is going to be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the first thing we always want people to start with before they talk to us is really what is your vision and what is your goals?
Right. That can take the process in so many different directions, but it's so much better if you have a clear vision and a clear goal up front and share that with the builder, with the architect. We'll talk about the team in a little bit, but those visions, the goals you're talking about are critical, and we really encourage our potential clients to get in depth with us.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to know what your budget is, which is going to be impacted by that vision. I mean, even down to the land you're going to purchase is going to be shaped by, what it is that your goal is. So when you start off defining those visions, that's kind of where I start talking to folks is,
yes.
I get to ask them, what are you hoping to achieve by building a home? So the needs are the basis for it, right?
Yeah. What do you need? I mean, and we want to be clear here. There's a difference here between needs and wants, but needs is what do you need to have in this house, like the number of bedrooms, accessibility features, locations, and things like that, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, accessibility features, I think, are becoming even more important to most homeowners. And when you're getting to the point where you're going to build your dream home, a lot of times it's your forever home. And so knowing that up front and being able to bring that to your builder, that's going to impact everything from size of your hallway to placement of your kitchen and your bedroom and things like that. So you don't have to have it spelled out to a T, but just knowing this is going to be the home that I want to live in past retirement is going to be important.
So what then, in your opinion, is the difference between needs and wants?
The wants are those nice to haves. They may get cut for budget, like maybe long lengths of windows because I seem to be obsessed with long lengths of windows lately.
Or one that's very popular these days is we would like to do a golf simulator in the basement. How much does it cost to lower our basement a couple of extra feet so we have enough to get that golf simulator into our plans?
Or the prep kitchen. Yeah. That's another big one.
So those are a want. Can anybody, do you think, really afford their wishes? Or how do you kind of define that?
I would have put that golf simulator in a wishes category.
Well, okay.
But that's just me. I think those are
I would have put it in the want category.
Yeah. If you get to the point where your budget can expand a little bit, or, maybe it's something that you have on that wishes, you can deprioritize, but as you get further along, you know what, this really is a want. It's those things that you kind of can't decide if you can't live without them, right?
And it's interesting because I know when you first start talking with our potential clients, one of the things that you send them, give them a little bit of homework before they come into the office to sit down with us and talk about their project. You actually send out a needs, a wants, and wishes list to help us better understand the project, and we can more effectively communicate with them during that first meeting and set the proper expectations.
It really goes room by room. And what we ask folks to do is put a star next to those optional items, things like 2 separate sinks. You have a smaller prep sink in an island. That might be something that you could live without, right? A wish. So if you have that in the asterisk, you know what your priorities are. And we know what your priorities are and can communicate about that. But I think the other thing that maybe we would add to the needs column is those lifestyle factors, such as whether or not you have young children at home. And maybe I'm saying this because I have young children
yes,
at home.
You do. I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of people are coming to us and talking about multi-generational families and wanting to have their parents be able to move in and or making this a forever home. So maybe an elevator's on the game plan, but they can't afford it now, but we can design the space into the plans. So again, it really, whether it's a needs, a wants, or a wishes, those can be defined out as you talk further with your builder. But to your earlier point, be as prepared as possible, and it's really going to make the project that much more successful.
Well, we've been talking a lot about structure of the home, and so hopefully if you've listened to this podcast, you're going to come in with some structural goals as well, right? So whether or not you want to build conventional or high performance.
We hope high performance, but that's just who we are. I think you can satisfy both goals building conventionally, but paying attention to the high performance features, because what's your goal? Is it energy efficiency? If it's energy efficiency, do you want a certification for the particular house and things like that? So make sure your builder does understand what your structural goals are, because that's going to affect everything from the wall assembly to the weather barrier to the insulation package, windows, HVAC. So truly do come in and come prepared to talk about what are our goals when it comes to the structure of the house.
And where that kind of goes into your design goals, it kind of plays with your design goals a bit, is maybe you're not going to finish the basement right now. That's not a priority to you, but you want to make sure that you have a high enough pour that you can finish it in the future. And
Exactly.
so these are all things that you want to think through before getting, in front of your builder.
And since you mentioned the basement, another thing to make sure you do as well is consider how you will finish that lower level a little bit later, because you want to make sure you at least have the rough-in locations for your plumbing, so that can be roughed in before you pour the slab. Even though you're not going to finish it now, you have to have some of this work done to make the future expansion not only much easier to finish, but also less expensive to finish.
Absolutely. And the design goals that you have are a little bit different than your design vision too. So
Okay, now you've confused me.
Yeah, because you have to think also about the level of personalization and uniqueness that you want in your home,
Okay.
right? So is it important to you to have these outstanding light fixtures that you just can't find somewhere else? And
Now I'm with you.
yeah, kind of figuring out how that's going to play into your design. I mean, even such things as, wiring and low volt when we have extra voltage run to certain areas if you want, say, a movie theater and things like that. So, that's a really unique personal touch.
When you use that example of some of the light fixtures and things like that, believe it or not, that does go into the overall look of the house or the architectural style of the house. So that's something that you really need to have a decision made up front, is what do we want this house to look like?
When we had somebody come in the other day that didn't quite know what type of architectural style that they wanted, right?
And we made up a term for them, didn't we?
We always come up with hybrid terms, but, I know that modern craftsmen, we have, I guess it's Tudor Redux is big now, but you don't have to have it pinned down to exactly, I want a Tudor home, but you can say, I really like this about this style of home, this Tudor style home, more traditional, but I also like this about a mid-century modern home, and that'll help you figure out what architect to work with down the line too. So you don't have to exactly have everything pinned down, but you have to have an idea of what you really like design-wise.
And that reminds me to remind our listeners that do some homework before you meet with your builder and then your builder will help introduce you to some architects unless you have one in mind. But the reason I say that is it's so much easier for us if you come prepared with photos of homes that you like, interiors that you like, finishes that you like, because it helps our team, the design team, and eventually the architect get a real good feeling for that. And quite frankly, if you're organized up front and you can even bring floor plans into the architect about what you like and why, that gives them a starting point, whether they can dig up some plans that they've designed before and start there, or it at least gives them a starting point for a custom set of plans, because architects charge in two different ways. There's an hourly fee for the design phase up front, and then most of them charge a flat fee or a percentage on the back end for the actual construction documents. So if you're well organized up front, you can keep those hourly design fees to a minimum, and that's where the organization certainly does help.
All of these elements we're going to talk about today, they do need to work in tandem. It's a checklist that we're giving you, but you're not checking them off in order. You're going to be doing all of this kind of at the same time. It's doing your homework. So clarifying your vision and your goals would be the first part of this checklist. And then creating an organization system for your ideas. I am a huge print and put it in a binder person. There are a lot of people who like to use House to organize ideas, but even Pinterest is a great resource. TikTok as well. There are a lot of really beautiful home tours and ideas that people put up there, and just, create a bookmark and get all of that stuff together. Then you can check off this part of your list.
I have to get by the dog and cat videos first, to be honest with you, because they're so funny on TikTok. Come on.
I mean, I guess it's because TikTok is the way it is, but it sounds like I like my TikTok better than your TikTok.
No, actually, I really do. TikTok is a great resource, but because of the algorithms and because of my fondness for cats and dogs, I do get a lot of funny videos. But in all seriousness, it is another really great resource for those who are looking for some design options and that type of thing as well. Yeah. All of this we're talking about really comes down to helping the builder and the architect better understand your vision, because ultimately, what does it come down to? The budget, right? That to me is more important than virtually anything.
It can be, a dream killer if you don't approach it right.
Yes.
One of the things that I printed up before we sat down to talk is there are certain percentages of your budget that are going to feed into those finishes. But when you approach a home build, a lot of people like to come to us and say, well, how much is it going to cost to build this? That's not how custom home building really can work.
Correct.
And so I always recommend approaching it the same way you would if you're going to go out and buy a pre-owned home. You know how much you're comfortable spending. You have an idea of what you want. And so what your builder can do is they can help you back into that. But you also need to kind of talk to a lender first before talking too deeply about your investment with your builder too.
One of the things that we always try to have our custom clients do with our preferred lenders is actually get a good feel for, okay, what is your level of comfort? And your level of comfort could be different than what your actually would be approved for, because some people don't want to spend everything that they could. But here's one little caveat that I try to share with folks, especially some of the younger generation that are just getting into the workforce or know that over the next 10 years, 20 years, they're going to be advancing in their profession and maybe there's higher income on the table and all. Make sure that you do plan for that and plan for the future. So don't always, have a minimum budget. Think about, okay, where are we going to be 5 years from now? 10 years from now. Maybe we should push it now because we will be getting those advancements in our career, which means more income. So maybe we should consider a little bit of a larger home right now, or maybe a home that has that extra bedroom so our family can grow and we can still stay here. Maybe we can afford that taller foundation pour. So just talk with your lender or a financial planner and talk to them about what your goals are now, but also what they might look like 10 years down the road.
Your floor plan is going to be shaped, the square footage.
Yes.
just like,
It all starts with the floor plan and the exterior finishes. You're right.
And then your needs, wants, and wishes, you can better prioritize that once you have an idea of what you're comfortable spending. And
Correct.
so that kind of goes back to refining that worksheet that you're putting together. And then there are different selection levels that are going to fit within your investment category, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could have these really high-end luxury finishes. We kind of have that middle range where maybe there's solid core doors in the primary bedroom suite, but hollow core for children's bedrooms or office spaces.
Yeah,
or
some of the secondary rooms.
Yeah. And then there's the more basic level where you're going with what you want and still prioritizing, but maybe not going as high end with countertops or things like that. So most of our folks are about that mid-range. And, we have a lot of luxury too, especially out in our Park City market. There are some gorgeous selections being made up there. Very, very custom, very high end. And then you have kind of a range that you should go into your budget looking at.
It's interesting because as we talk more about this, the word that keeps coming to my mind is transparency. And by that, I mean we want potential clients, or your builder and your architect are going to want prospective clients to be transparent with us. That's the only way we can accomplish this goal. So many times I've heard potential clients come in and say, well, this is what our budget is. And I'll just use $1 million because it's easy. It's a round number. Our budget is $1 million. But yet when we sit down with them and really talk about what their needs, wants, and wishes are, it's obvious that it might be a $1.1 million build because we're good at understanding current construction pricing and floor plans and complicated exterior elevations and can do some quick calculations at all. And so, if they bring in some of the plans they like and finishes they like and we do a quick calculation, we might say, you're still going to be a little bit short. And then we find out later on that they purposely held back like 10 to 15% because they think they need to, because they've heard the stories where the builders are always, going over their budget. I will contend that if you have the right team in place and the right partnership with your builder and architect, and you're communicating efficiently and effectively with everybody, you can confidently share with them what your ultimate budget goal is, and that team will work to design your house with your finish levels and your selections to meet that budget.
Absolutely. And I do remember we had Trisha on a couple episodes
Trisha
ago.
McConkey. Yep,
Yes.
She's one of our lenders from the St. Louis area, Associated Bank.
Right. And she was talking about factoring in contingencies. So what is the difference between, I guess, factoring in contingencies and what would you?
So that's a great question because I look at it in two different ways. Number one, there's a construction contingency for the unknowns, things that these plans are the first time ever designed. The house has never been built. You've never excavated on this particular piece of ground, whether it's rock or plastic, clay, soil. So I look at the contingencies for sticks and bricks are those true things that you have no idea that they're going to happen, right? But then you have the money in the budget for just that event. There's also a contingency that you could put into place for selections. Let's say that you get into the project and you make this decision down the road that we just have to have this really expensive granite because we know that we're going to be in this house forever and it's something we really want. Or we really decide we've put the elevator shaft in, but something changed with our family. We want to go ahead and install the elevator now. Those are the selection type contingencies that it's always nice to have a little bit of extra money in the budget in case you change your mind or in case you run into something during construction that you truly could not have foreseen coming up. And I usually recommend, I think it's going to depend upon the lender. I think depending upon the price of the house and all, 5% is a number I know some lenders are throwing around. I feel comfortable with that number, but we as a fixed cost builder, the way we look at it is this. Let's say there's $50,000 for contingencies in your budget. If you never use that money, you do not finance it on the back end because it's never been used. So it's nice to have it there as a backup, but you don't have to use it.
But you want your builder to know that's
100%.
That's planned for when you go in and talk to them.
And again, making sure that your whole team understands that it's there in the case of an emergency or it's there in case we just have to have this beautiful countertop that costs more than the typical quartz or granite or whatever.
We have some people who we chat with and they say that, I just want really basic level finishes, right? And I guess, does that even make sense to go in if you're going to be building new because you're going to be paying more? If you're buying used, you're going to have that money built in your mind that, I'm going to redo the kitchen or whatever. That seems like maybe you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you're going in saying, I just want basic for everything, don't you think?
That is a little bit of an issue because what we found is that many times when we have people who say, we just want the basic finishes, what happens is they get into construction and inevitably they do start to ramp up those selections because they start getting excited about the house and they start going down the selection rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, they are selecting higher grade material than they had originally indicated to the builder up front. And that's where it really makes a difference to just have that extra money in there in case that happens to you. Some lenders require the contingency, other lenders don't, but I promise you that they will have that conversation with you up front about what happens if all of a sudden you decide to go for some of the higher finish levels.
Right. And then you've got your builder talking to your lender, wringing their hands, trying to figure things out so that you can get clear to close, right?
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up because it's very important when you're thinking about your lender. You want to make sure that once that construction budget is put into place and once you have your lender kind of locked in, the one thing you don't want to do until you sign off on that loan, obviously, is change jobs. You don't want to make any major purchases like cars or anything like that, because everything that you turned into your lender, they're using to qualify you for this new construction loan. They will go back one more time since you've been pre-qualified and they'll verify that all of this information is still accurate. And if you've changed anything, it could seriously affect whether or not you get that new construction loan, or they might take longer to put everything into place. So just be very careful once you're kind of locked in with a budget and ready to go with that new construction loan.
And so it's really another reason that you want to be completely transparent with everyone about, this is what we're willing to pay and what we're comfortable paying. So I guess with your checklist, at this point, you're meeting with your lender and determining your loan amount and then going back through and probably refining all of those selections and, figuring out exactly how much you can afford and exactly how much you want to get for what you can afford before you move on to the next step and put your team together.
Yes. And the team, I think, that's such a good word there, because think about it. It is truly like a team and the builder is the quarterback. The builder is kind of making sure that everybody is doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're helping pull other teammates in like an architect or perhaps a designer. We happen to have designers on our team, but if there is not a designer on your builder's team, that I think is an important element. Who's going to help you with your selections and pull everything together? Then you have your lender. We've talked about them as well. So realistically, the team, in my opinion, is extremely important. And that's why we've talked about this on earlier shows and earlier episodes. Some people think that if you go through competitive bidding, you're going to get better pricing. And I contend that competitive bidding is not the way to go, that you should interview your builders up front, have them give you all the information about how they work with clients, understand how they're going to be your advocate to help you keep costs under control. Because if you go the path of a competitive bid, I will contend, and you can verify this because you talk to all the sales calls coming in, you're going to be extremely disappointed because the first thing that's going to happen is your $1 million build is going to come back at 1.4 because the architect was not controlled by anybody and they over-designed the house.
Absolutely. That's another big dream killer is you want to have the architect and your builder on board for those checks and balances, really. And, as you were talking, it occurred to me that maybe it's coming at it from a commercial construction standpoint. Residential is maybe a little bit different. We have a lot of folks that are entrepreneurs that work with us. And so they're used to putting out RFPs and things like that. And so that's how they see business being done. But from the residential side, it's more of we're your advocates, like you said. So it's just coming at it from a completely different standpoint.
I mean, think about it. We actually are talking with a potential client right now who is comparing us with others. And of course, there's some others who said, well, they have a lower fee than you do and all. But I contend that if you take into account how we run our process and how we are there. You used the word before, advocate, when it comes to the design process and the selection process where we pass along builder discounts. I promise that there might be a little bit of a pricing difference between us and another builder just because of the way their pricing structure works, if you will. But I know that because we're going to be the advocate for this client, we're going to save this client so much more money during the design phase because we're going to be directly communicating with the architect and helping them understand, how the design reflects on the pricing and everything else. And our designers are going to help them get the best possible deals, but yet give them the look they want. So there are different ways to look at it, but I still believe that teamwork, what you've said up before, teamwork is dream work. Put that team together and it will make your dream become a reality, and it'll be a really good process.
Part of that team, too, is with some of our clients who are doing mid to upper mid-range homes, we have designers on staff that help them. Mm-hmm. And they have kind of a set amount of hours that come with it. But then you also could hire, a lot of our high-end clients hire in outside designers.
Yes.
And they will work with your architect. They will work with your builder. And so it's having all three of them in conversation from the very beginning, make sure that you achieve all of those goals, too.
Absolutely. And that's why when we're talking about goals, it's truly having the builder, the architect, the designer, lender, everybody on board, everybody pulling in that same direction is so much better than truly going the competitive bid route, because it's in this world where you're working so closely with everybody and you want that partnership, it truly does make a big difference how these projects go. And to your point, it might be counterintuitive to what you do, especially if you think, well, yeah, but I'm going to get better pricing this way. No, you're not. You really aren't, because there's so many more advantages to putting that team together up front.
Well, and you look at how the detail with which you're going to get a budget if you're working with a builder too. I mean, there are so many different pieces that go into play that if you're bidding up front, they can't plan for contingencies and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So you have to wonder what's missing. I know we bid out an event and I got the numbers back and I'm like, I feel like we're missing something.
You did. You said there's something missing with these numbers.
Exactly. So you may have the lowest number, but what's missing there?
Yeah.
And you don't know what you don't know. The fourth person on that team kind of plays into the next step, which would be whether or not you're going to use a realtor to secure your land. Do you already have the land or do you need to find it?
There's another saying out there that we're used to in our industry, right?
Yeah.
It's location, location, location.
Right.
And it truly is about all of that, because to your point, that will absolutely play into the teamwork. It absolutely plays into the budget. There are percentages you really need to kind of factor in. For example, the percentage that the production builder assigns to the lot is different than a custom builder. We try to be in that 20 to 25% world. So if you're building $1 million house, you want your land to be somewhere about 200,000, maybe 250. But in the right locations, you can really stretch that number to 30, 35%. And if it's a large enough piece of ground, and if the appraisals surrounding that particular area are high enough, we've actually gone as high as 50% in some cases. So again, it really comes down to making sure whomever is helping you find the land and your lender and the builder are all on the same page, because there's not a one-size-fits-all when it comes down to the land. And there's other things involved with finding the location, correct?
There is. I mean, there are going to be HOAs and there are going to be architect review boards that are going to have an impact on what designs are allowed in that area. And,
Good point.
Even what finishes need to be
The size of the
cladding.
house.
Size of the house, exactly. You could have a really great piece of land, but and say, I only want a 1,500 square foot house. But if it's a really narrow lot, that could drive your cost up because of hauling dumpsters back and forth because you just don't have enough room. There are so many pieces, moving parts to how that lot can impact the cost of your build too.
Yeah, and let's back up, because you used a very important term a minute ago, the HOAs. That's the homeowner association.
Yes.
Most homeowner associations have some sort of architectural guidelines. Sometimes they're called CC&Rs. I mean, there's different terminology, but basically what they do is tell you what you can build and what you can't build. So you brought up a very good point. You have to be careful. You might have a budget of $800,000, but by the time you buy the land and by the time you meet these architectural design guidelines, The size of the house, the finish of the house, stone, brick, the steepness of the roof, dormers, the type of windows, all of that can be regulated within these HOA guidelines. And that might take your $800,000 budget and take you to 1.2 without blinking an eye. So make sure that when you find the right, and the builder can help with this, when you find the right realtor partner, that you understand what those HOAs are and that you help them understand the impact on your building budget to make sure that this is the right property for them.
Well, and we talked earlier about how these pieces are moving in tandem and you're kind of doing a lot of this at the same time. The exposures of your home can impact your floor plan. Example that was brought up recently is you don't want to be eating dinner at 5 o'clock with a, Western exposure in your dining room with the sun blasting in your eyes, right?
Yes, exactly.
And things like that. So, it'll impact even the energy efficiency of your home. So that's going to impact what your builder can do, and it's going to impact what your architect's going to design. So when you're building that team, though, one of the cool things that we've done in both Park City and St. Louis is we've built kind of a network of referral folks. Mm-hmm. So we will get a lot of times people who come to us and say, oh, I really want to build this house. I don't have a piece of land. And so we will refer out to the realtors that we know understand the construction process, have an idea of what's going to be required for that land for development and things like that. Architects as well. I really like X style of home. Oh, we can tell you this person builds really beautiful houses that meet that style.
Yeah, exactly.
These pieces are all moving, and you're responsible for them. It's your homework, but they're all moving and kind of falling into place, but they're all impacting each other in terms of what you can get done.
Can I give you another reason you should put your team together and at least have a builder on board up front?
Why?
Site evaluation.
Oh, yeah.
Go look at this lot. I mean, there are so many things to consider when looking at a lot. Number one is simple. It might seem simple, but it's not. Utility connections. Where's your electric coming from? Where's the gas supply coming from? Where's the sewer and water? If you have a 9-foot basement pour, are you going to have the proper fall to connect into the public sewer? If you don't, what's the impact there? Do you have public sewer? Do you need septic? What about retaining walls? How will the house sit on this site? You might have to have $50,000 in retaining walls. What about the setbacks? Those setbacks may mean that this large ranch you want to build, you can't, that you have to build a story and a half to kind of shrink that footprint a little bit. We just had a client recently who was working with a realtor who needed some help in doing due diligence work with their site work and their setbacks. And it turns out they could not build the home they wanted to build, so they opted to move on from that lot because they had a contingency, like a 90-day due diligence period. And we helped them do their due diligence to determine this lot was not right for them. There are so many factors that go into finding the lot. And what are the added construction costs on this lot, or what are the concerns of this particular lot? Just another great reason to have a builder on board that you trust up front.
When you're talking about builders' budgets and bidding out, thinking about the cost to develop that land, the tree clearing, you might think that, I have a house, I have 2 lots. One is bare, there's no home there, but it has a lot of trees that need to be cleared, or there's a lot that has a home that needs to be demoed. Your builder can help you decide which one is actually going to cost more, because it may run counterintuitive to what you originally thought. And so Hibbs Homes can be unique compared to some builders that we try to build that into the amount that our clients are going to spend with us. If we know that there's a ton of tree clearing that needs to be done on this lot, we try to make sure that that's built into that budget up front, so that, it's not on top of all of the design and construction that you're doing.
You bring up a good point. A lot of this that we're talking about is just the Hibbs Homes process and the way we do business. I would contend that many custom builders will probably follow the same path. Now, you will have some custom builders who are probably more strict, if you will, about what they will and what they won't do. But this is kind of who we are, how we do things. As an active member of the National Association of Home Builders, and I'm in meetings across the country where I'm talking with a lot of other custom home builders, I get the feeling that there's a lot of other Hibbs homes out there. So your homework, if you will, if you're building in other parts of the country, is to truly find a builder that's going to provide you with what you need to build your home. And if it takes 2 or 3 or 4 interviews with builders to find the right one, so be it. The homework is extremely important. And that's why we've said over the past 6 years, use us as a resource. Let us try to help you find builders in different parts of the country, or at least give you the guidance and the questions to ask to make sure you find the right builder.
Having those builder best practices in place, it's invaluable. And having that custom builder on board, our best practices are constantly evolving because you are part of these associations. You see what's happening across the country. And,
right.
Again, it's you don't know what you don't know whenever you're doing those competitive bids. How do you know that your builder's going to be following the best practices for that bid, and including land clearing or whatever in it? So... yeah.
So hopefully we've run through a good portion of, kind of defining what that dream is, really understanding it, and then, what do you want this investment to look like, and really kind of focus on the financial side of things and the importance of assembling the dream team. We've talked about that frequently over the years. We're going to continue to talk about it in the future because we truly believe it's the best way to go about this whole process. And then finally, location, and the importance of the lot and everything too. So I think it was a great subject, a great topic, and hopefully we've been able to give our listeners an understanding of, if you're thinking about building a dream home, what does that process look like? And quite frankly, this is our process. This is a process that's worked exceptionally well for nearly 20 years for us. It's been a fun conversation.
I would say that one of the key takeaways is to also make sure that you're starting with a good team, because you can get referrals too.
Yeah.
We've worked with several folks, and whoever you're working with is going to be able to tell you this is a great realtor, this is a great architect, and things like that too.
That's a valuable point. Yeah, so that referral network is huge, especially in our industry, because quite frankly, you align yourself with like-minded folks. And so if you're open and honest and transparent and communicate exceptionally well, like we try to do, and I think we succeed 99% of the time, your network is going to be of the same type of professional. And I think that's a great point you brought up.
Well, and I know when we talk to folks, even if we're not the right builder for them, we can often refer them to somebody who is the right builder for them, either in their area or, we have a lot of people who call us and want us to do renovations because we do have that high performance here in St. Louis. And so we can refer folks on because they know they trust us, and we can say, oh, here's a renovator that you can work with too. So.
Not every job is right for every builder. And there have been many times over the years where we have been honest with folks and say, I don't think we are the right fit, but here is absolutely a direction for you to consider going. It's at least a 2-year marriage, with air quotes, because you've got the design process, you have the construction process, then you have the warranty process. You have to be able to understand, put that team together, make sure you feel like it's a strong fit for everyone, and then just know that for a long period of time, you're going to be working closely together. And so it's really worth making sure that it's the right fit for everybody.
This might feel a little bit like an info dump because it was just all the stuff in our brain.
Yeah, I'm
that
tired.
I think
I need a nap now.
Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together your preparing to build checklist and put that on our show notes.
That'll be really cool.
A little bit more information about each of these little steps, and reiterate that they kind of all need to be running at the same time, but this is really what to do when you're ready to figure out what your next steps for a build are.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past before as well. I'm a huge believer that if you're looking for builders, obviously friends and family who've built before, or architects they will know builders. But the other, I think the greatest resource is to look for your local Home Builders Association website. There's a drop-down menu that will have custom builders. And I just think that's such a great way to kind of start the whole process as well.
And if you don't watch out, Kim, I'm going to start asking the NAHB and the local HBAs for sponsorship dollars.
We're getting nothing out of it, but I'll give you the phone numbers, Melody. Speaking of phone number.
Yes. If you have questions, you can get a hold of us at 314-266-9709. You can leave a message, and we may include you in a future episode.
That'd be great. We'll continue to roll on. We have a lot of fun things planned over the upcoming weeks, and we thank you very much for joining us on what we call the roadmap to your dream home, what you need to know before you build. Hopefully it's been helpful to you. You've learned a lot from it. We've enjoyed the time with you, and we look forward to having you join us again on our next episode.
For more information, visit www.artofcustompodcast.com or find us on Facebook and LinkedIn as The Art of Custom. Be sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes and please rate and review. The Art of Custom is produced by Hug Monster Sound with original music by Adam Frickfordine. Thanks for listening.